about comics. Let's talk about comics. Let's talk about comics. Let's talk about comics. Around the YouTube, it's Charles here, and as promised, I'm here to talk about another book from the Night of the Cadillacs universe. These books are put out by Execution Posse Holdings and Keenspot Entertainment, and pretty much what it is, it's kind of a mixed genre of underworld gangland stories with vampiric stories and stories of monsters, if you will. And the books, they're doing something very creative, both artistically and story wise. Is they're putting out individual series based on these gangs who are separated by location, ethnicity, so on and so forth, lends itself to very unique aspects of storytelling. In Kill Town, it is based on an Asian gang, and so it has its own look, its own feel, its own story. Um, what other books are there? The Stitches, they're a motorcycle gang, so it has its own aesthetic. Lipstick Clica, it is a story about vampiric cholas, and so it has that, Latino aesthetic to it as well, the Latino gang aesthetic. And this book right here is The Chamberlains, one of the newest releases out of this Night of the Cadillac universe. They're all interconnected but tell the stories from different perspectives. In this book, um, I am reviewing it simply because I've reviewed every other book in this series. And I also have the Stitches #3 that I have to get into. So I'll be doing a review on that. But it's been an interesting ride with these books. With Lipstick Clica, #1 was a double issue. It was great. #2 was And then Kill Town, that was completely up and down. #1 sparked my interest. #2 was horrible. And #3 was great. Papa Duke, read #1. I was not a big fan of the story. The art was good. The Stitches, #1 was interesting, and #2 really developed a lot of the plot, and I think had one of some of the best writing in the entire series. And so when we get to the Chamberlains, I almost didn't review it because the book itself, it was just kind of plain. It felt like a lot of themes were rehashed from Kill Town, but the art really stood out to me. I really enjoyed the art and the aesthetic. And this features two black siblings from New York. And when we first meet them, we meet the little brother, Terrence, back in Harlem in 1993, diving into a swimming pool here. And while we're looking at this right here, I just want to talk about what I appreciate about the art. It is all beautiful from cover to cover. How can I explain this? One thing I don't like about comics is that when they portray black characters, they're often written from the viewpoint of a white illustrator, and so you're going to have things like the hair texture may be wrong, the skin texture will be off, and then we have what I call the same face issue, where a lot of the black characters look almost identical. You look at Jace Fox, the new Batman from DC, and compare him to Night Thrasher or any other Marvel guy, and they have the same face, the same box cut, but here, you see multiple different black hairstyles from, a little box cut to an afro. You see dreadlocks, you see all different textures and tones of blackness, and the art style is it's a watercolor that really the art style sets it apart from what we see in the rest of these books. But the story is kind of plain Jane and a bit vanilla. We start off, like I said, he dives into the pool and he ends up getting hurt, and his big sister has to save his life. And she gives him the nickname Ghost because he was practically dead, and he's kind of excited and happy about that. And then we cut to Harlem 5 years later, and we see Ghost and his friends in what is a trap house. And his sister walks in and she makes a remark, MFers don't lock the door, don't know how to lock the door anymore. And you can see that there's tension between Terrence and his sister Kiara as they've aged, but you don't know why. At first the time jump was jarring, and I'll explain why in a second. But so we go from 1993 to 5 years later, and then we go back to 1993, and we meet their father, who I believe is terminally ill and abusive. And so he's mad that the little brother almost died, and he takes it out on Kiara for some reason, which prompts her to leave, which creates a divide between her and her brother and a certain level of animosity between the two. And then we cut to 6 months later after she has left. So we're looking at 93, 94, and she is involved in a drug gang and has really impressed him and is moving up the ranks quickly. And it is intimated that she is going to have to make some kind of change to get a promotion. And what we know now is that change was to become a vampire. And then so we do that to the time jump to literally the same page. Her walking into the trap house. And at first, I mean, it is so jarring. I thought it was a mistake, because they use the exact same page with the exact same panels and the exact same dialogue. And I see what they were trying to do, but it comes off as lazy. But we continue on that scene, and her brother rejects her. And we go from that to another jarring cut to later that night, him and his crew are partying in a club. And just long story short, they end up getting ambushed and almost die until Kiara runs in and saves their lives by making them vampires. And all of a sudden, all of the tension, the frustration is gone, and now Kiara and Terrence and his crew are one gang, presumably called the Chamberlains, who are now vampire gangsters. Like I said, it has great art. I cannot express how much I love the art, but a lot of the same pacing and storytelling issues that happened with Kill Town #2. We have motives that aren't quite clear, themes that look like they're going one way and then it is cut off. I think this book could have used a few more pages, especially for the price tag. It's a $5.99 book, and it seemed like a lot of information was left on the table. How did the brother end up with this crew, and how did they reconcile? And yeah, like I said, it was just so much jumping. And I think that maybe they depend on you reading the rest of these books. But I honestly don't think you're going to have a lot of people following along with every book in this universe. I do it because I've reviewed these books, and it's almost become like a series of me keeping up with the Knight of the Cadillacs universe. But To be quite honest with you, with the sporadic nature of the quality, if I was not reviewing these books, I would not continue reading these books. Uh, I can say that this gets an A on the art, and if you're a big fan of the art, comic books are a medium that is equally artistic as well as writing. So if you're a big fan of the art, it might be worth it for you to pick up. But the story is rushed and a little bit vague. But like I said, I'll give it another try, because I think if they can really explore this dynamic and some of the frustrations between Kiara and Terrence, I think that could be rich material for future stories. And to see how they fit into this underworld, this vampire underworld, with the rest of the gangs. So that's been my thoughts on the Chamberlains from Execution Posse Holdings, Keenspot Comics. Get yours at Look Comic Book Store. And if you don't have a local comic book store, I always suggest my friends at Coffee and a Comic. They ship nationwide and have a great, easy to use website. And if you're in Wyoming, check out my friends at Spellbound Apothecary and Entertainment in the Eastridge Mall. They ship in Wyoming for free for orders over $35. And so that's been my thoughts on the Chamberlains. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, keep reading them books. You know I will.